What's up, Football Daily? The phrase panic buy usually carries negative connotations, with transfers born out of desperation usually resulting in a big overspend, poor squad building, dressing room imbalance, or a combination of all three. With Marouane Fellaini's move to Man United and Andy Carroll's move to Liverpool two of the most infamous examples. But sometimes, just sometimes, panic buys actually pay off. With deadline day around the corner, let's take a look at 10 of them. 10. Dan Burn. It's probably a little harsh on Dan Burn to label him a panic buy given he's a lifelong Newcastle fan, but his transfer to St James's Park at the end of the January window last year was hardly made in the easiest of circumstances. The Magpies had won just one of their opening 22 Premier League games and remained in serious danger of relegation despite significant investment from their new Saudi owners. Burn meanwhile was far from their first choice, with the club failing their attempts to sign Sven Botman, Diego Carlos and Benoit Badiashile, before turning to the English defender, who was only handed a 2.5-year contract. But Burn instantly thrived under Eddie Howe, failing to miss a single minute of Premier League action in the second half of 21-22, as he helped the Magpies win 10 of their final 16 games, a run that also included 6 clean sheets. And since the club finally did land Botman, he's become Howe's first choice left back, as they've gone from escaping relegation to challenging for the top 4 in less than 12 months. £13 million very well spent. 9. Casemiro. Following a slow first 2 months of the summer transfer window and consecutive losses in his opening 2 games as Man United manager, it wouldn't have been unreasonable for Erik ten Hag to have had concerns about the job he'd taken on at Old Trafford, especially given the club's repeated failed attempts to secure his top midfield target Frenkie de Jong. But after a 4-0 loss to Brentford, in which the side's lack of steel in the middle of the park was once again laid bare, the Red Devils hierarchy acted fast to secure a star name, bashing out a deal worth £70 million to bring Real Madrid's Casemiro to the Premier League. Despite his pedigree spending that much on a 30-year-old whose experience largely consisted of playing alongside two of the 21st century's greatest midfielders in Modric and Kroos, was rightly seen as a risk. The timing of it meanwhile seemed knee-jerk. But so far Casemiro has had the kind of effect few have had at Old Trafford in recent years in genuinely raising the level of the team, with United conceding 0.7 goals per game when he started and 2.1 goals a game when he hasn't. Signed amid a crisis, the Brazilian is now United's most important player. 8. Zlatan Ibrahimovic. When Milan announced the signing of Zlatan Ibrahimovic at the end of December 2019, it came just 5 days after a humiliating 5-0 loss to Atalanta, the club's heaviest defeat in over 20 years. So signing the Swedish veteran seemed like a sign of desperation. The striker had just turned 38, hadn't played in a European league in 2 years, and despite coming off a 31-goal campaign for LA Galaxy, the idea that he could single-handedly change the fortunes of a side that sat 11th in the league, closer in points to the relegation zone than the top 6, and with deficiencies in multiple areas of the pitch, seemed pretty far-fetched. But he kind of did just that. Milan won 3 of their first 4 games with Zlatan in the team, with his blend of physicality, leadership and attacking intelligence giving Stefano Pioli's side an instant lift. He ended the season with 10 goals and 5 assists in 17 games, working out to a goal involvement every 91 minutes, as Milan climbed up to 6th. It proved the springboard for the club's recent success, with Ibra scoring 15 the following campaign as they finished second, and becoming less influential on the pitch as injuries and age caught up with him, but remaining a big figure in the dressing room in 21-22 as they won their first title since 2011. 7 and 6. David Luiz and Marcos Alonso. Signed by Chelsea for a second time just 2 years after being sold to PSG, David Luiz secured his return to Stamford Bridge with just minutes before the transfer window slammed shut in August 2016, marking the end of a summer in which the new manager Antonio Conte had become frustrated with the club's failure to secure top targets, with N'Golo Kante and Michy Batshuayi their only significant signings before deadline day. With Luiz and Marcos Alonso arriving in the nick of time, a Guardian report that evening concluded that the transfers reflected the club's desperation in a difficult market, with many fans worried about Luiz's erratic tendencies in defence. Left-back Alonso's previous experience at the Premier League, meanwhile, had been on loan at Sunderland 2 years earlier, hardly the profile of player Blues supporters had come to expect in the Roman Abramovich era, and an overspend at €23 million. But after switching to a 3-4-3 2 months into the season, Antonio Conte extracted some of the best performances of both Luiz and Alonso's career. Luiz in particular looked excellent at the centre of a back 3 where his passing range could be maximised, while Alonso scored 6 and assisted 3 from wing-back. Chelsea won the league, setting a new record for Premier League wins in the process. 5. Edgar Davids. Another January signing to make our list, Edgar Davids joined Barcelona midway through the 2003-04 season, a campaign in which they went from crisis both on and off the pitch to miraculously finishing second. just 5 points off champions Valencia. When he arrived that winter, Frank Rijkaard's side were slumped in 12th place, having won just 6 of their opening 18 games. The signing of Ronaldinho the previous summer may have brought some much-needed flair to the Camp Nou, but Barcelona remained incredibly soft-centred, losing 5-1 to Malaga and 3-0 to Racing Santander, who had gone to escape relegation by a single point. Davids, who had lost his place in the Juventus lineup and had a contract due to expire that summer, was brought in on a 6-month loan to remedy this, but while it was certainly an emergency move, it proved a smart one. With Davids adding a necessary layer of steel to the midfield, Barca went unbeaten for almost 5 months, dropping just 6 points across 17 games, a run which included a first victory in 4 years over arch-rivals Real Madrid. Davids didn't stay beyond the summer, but had already helped shift the tide in Spanish football. After 5 trophyless seasons, Barca would go on to win consecutive league titles and the Champions League in the next 2 years. 4. Arjen Robben. Already nicknamed the Man of Glass by the time he arrived at Bayern Munich at the end of the 2009 summer transfer window, Arjen Robben had been pushed out of Real Madrid following the signings of Cristiano Ronaldo and Kaká, with the Spanish giants willing to take a loss on their investment to get him out of the Bernabeu, with his poor injury record a key factor in him losing a place in the club's plans. So while in hindsight it may seem ridiculous to call him a panic buy, Bayern, who had lost out on the Bundesliga title to Wolfsburg the previous season, were taking a significant risk when they signed him. €25 million was far from a bargain at the time, especially for a player who had failed to hit double figures for goals since his first season at PSV 7 years earlier, with Luca Toni Bayern's top scorer in 2008-09 on just 14. At 25, Robben was at a make-or-break moment in his career. The gamble, of course, paid off handsomely. Robben hit 16 in the league and 23 in all competitions the following campaign, firing Bayern to a first Champions League final in 9 years and coming an Iker Casillas save away from lifting the World Cup that same summer. Injuries remained a problem, but that didn't stop the Dutchman becoming a legend in Bavaria, forming an era-defining partnership with Frank Ribery and winning 17 pieces of silverware at the Allianz Arena. 3. Florent Laville. Back in January 2003, Bolton Wanderers manager Sam Allardyce was scrambling for signings with his side embroiled in one of the most intense relegation battles in Premier League history. The situation was compounded by the club having no money to spend, with a £3.5 million deadline day sale of Michael Ricketts, the previous season's top scorer, mainly used to pay off the loan the club had previously taken out, leaving them with just enough to pay the wages of loan signings or free pickups. Somehow a squad containing JJ Okocha, World Cup winner Yuri Djorkaeff, and Champions League winner Ivan Campo were heading for the drop. With hours remaining of the window, Allardyce took a huge risk, signing 3 players on loan, none of whom he'd watched in a competitive game before. As he later told the Bolton News, it was either take them or not take anybody. I had to take the gamble. 2 of them, forwards Pierre-Yves André and Salva Ballester, made just 1 start between them. But defender Florent Laville, signed from Lyon, proved a masterstroke. The Frenchman started 10 games in the second half of the campaign, with his defensive solidity helping Allardyce's side keep clean sheets in 6 of them, including a 1-0 win over relegation rivals West Ham that would prove vital to their survival. Despite that being the only loss of the Hammers' final 11 games, they were relegated on 42 points, with Bolton edging them on 44 and finishing the top half for the following 4 seasons straight. 2-1, Mikel Arteta and Per Mertesacker. Arsenal's deadline day business of 2011 was the definition of a mixed bag, having sold Gaël Clichy, Cesc Fabregas and Samir Nasri that summer, and with no significant replacements signed, they took 1 point from their opening 3 Premier League games. An infamous 8-2 loss to Man United left them 17th in the league, as far from a title race as they had been in the Arsene Wenger era, and with just 3 days of the window remaining. With fans panicked, the club brought in 4 players for £26 million in the space of 48 hours. Forward Park Chu-young, left-back Andre Santos, centre-back Per Mertesacker, and midfielder Mikel Arteta. Park Chu-young would make just 1 league appearance for the Gunners, while Andre Santos would go down as one of the club's poorest signings of the Premier League era. But Mertesacker and Arteta proved to be 2 of the most astute purchases in the club's modern history. Mertesacker brought much-needed experience and depth to an understaffed backline, and would go on to win 3 FA Cups under Wenger. After retiring in 2018, the same year as Wenger departed, he was hired as the head of the club's academy, a position he holds to this day, overseeing the emergence of talents such as Sam Greenwood, Emile Smith-Rowe and Bukayo Saka. Arteta's move also proved a defining one for both the player and club. Previously an attacking midfielder at Everton, the former Rangers man evolved into more of a reader of the game at the Emirates, with his tackles and interceptions rising from 3.9 per 90 in his final season on Merseyside to a massive 6.3 per 90 in the 2013-14 campaign. On retirement in 2016, Arteta rejected the academy role that was later offered to Mertesacker, choosing instead to join Pep Guardiola's new project at Man City, and after 3 years working alongside and learning from the legendary coach, earned the top job back at the Emirates. He won the FA Cup in his first season, and following a troubled second campaign has led the club on a steep upward trajectory. Just over 10 years since signing for a club in crisis, he is now in pole position to win Arsenal their first Premier League title since the Invincibles. So guys, that was our rundown of 10 panic buys that proved the fans wrong. What did you guys think of the list, and which was the most dramatic story? It's got to be Arteta for me though. Get your thoughts in the comments down below. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to Football Daily, and I'll catch you next time.